Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Golden Opportunities Coaching YouTube channel. Welcome. To those of you who are new, like, subscribe, comment below. Today we're going to talk about when you know it's time to leave a partnership or relationship behind. I do work with people and coach people through the transition out of a relationship, be it maritally or just a dating scenario. It happens quite a lot, especially with the first marriages now are at 53% divorce rate. Second marriages up to 64%, 65%, something like that. So obviously there's a demand for people needing to, make a decision to leave partners behind. And that's a process that can be agonizing, right? You have chosen this person to be a part of your life, and you're saying goodbye not only to them, but you're saying goodbye to the vision of what you thought you had with them, and that can be extremely difficult. So, when do you know? And there's about 6 or 7 of these that we're going to go through, but when do you know it's time to start thinking, hey, this might not be for me anymore? The biggest one is if you're unhappy more than you're happy, right? So, look, unhappiness happens with other people. People let us down. They don't meet our expectations. It's part of human nature that no one can meet every expectation you have. There's just not a way to do that because they have to be inside your head. They'd have to look at the world through your worldview. It's not going to happen. And if it happens, 1 in every 10,000 couples, that there's this intuitive synchronicity that they never disagree and they're always happy with each other. That's wonderful, but it's really, really, really rare. So expect unhappiness to be part of your week or part of your month. It just that happens, right? Because you're not on the same page. But if you do a cost benefit analysis, which is how is this relationship benefiting me and what is it costing me? If it's costing you more in terms of personal happiness than it's benefiting you, then it's time to hit the door. And it has nothing to do with what you feel about the person. It has nothing to do with what the person promises or what you're promising in return. What it has to do with is that eventually, if it's costing you more than it's benefiting you, sooner or later resentment will grow. And when hidden resentment or unconscious resentment grows, man, that's when breakups get really, really ugly. Because you'll hear things like, well, 6 months ago you did this. And you're like, that was 6 months ago. Why is it coming up now? And the answer is because you've been holding on to it for so long, right? And you don't even realize that you've been keeping lists. I actually had a client probably 4 years ago, and she'd been married for 20-something years. And she brought to a phone session that we had with her significant other, whom she later decided to divorce. She had a journal of every mistake he had made in their 20-year relationship, and she brought it with her into a session. And I said, chances are he's going to remember 2% of these. And the guy says, yeah, you're right. And I said, and chances are you probably remember 10 to 20% of them. And she said, yeah, about a quarter I remember by looking at this. And I go, so a quarter of them matter, and 75% of them is you choosing to continue to engage in unhappiness. And so as they navigated away from the relationship, she realized that she'd been unhappy more than she'd been happy for several years. And that's a huge sign that it's time to bail. When you're anticipating being stressed out or frazzled with a person, when you change your actions, thoughts, words, deeds, behaviors, because you're trying to play chess against a person's anger or emotional state, it's time to go. And usually this happens if you have a partner who is really optimistic and a partner who's really pessimistic, or a person who is even keel and relaxed versus a person that has anxiety, a person who is real positive-minded, progressive-minded versus a person with depression. So when you have very opposite, what I call resting emotional states, chances are you anticipate the stress that comes with dealing with the person. And so you're thinking 2 steps ahead and going, all right, here's how she's going to react. Here's how he's going to think. I've got to figure out a way to to you know how to have a relationship with this person, avoiding the conflict points, avoiding the things that make them upset. So I've got to choose different words, I've got to take different actions, I've got to keep a different schedule, whatever it is. When you're anticipating how to avoid stressful situations, yeah, out the door you go. Now, the other one, and this is so common, but we don't realize we do this because it's usually an erosive or process of erosion, is when we lower our standards to stay in a relationship. For example, and I use this as a really, it's a graphic example, so if graphic examples bother you, please skip ahead a couple of minutes. Um, let's suppose there's a relationship where the woman or the gentleman, either one, has a rule that says if you ever hit me, I'm gone. Right? So it starts simple enough, and they're up in each other's faces. Right? So you're arguing, two people arguing. And it's like, okay, I don't want this to happen again, but it didn't get to the point where he or she hit me. I'm good. So then, let's say a month later, it's you know you're disagreeing, and this time you're chest to chest, you're nose to nose, and one person shoves the other person, and so then it's like, wow, that got physical, but it wasn't a punch, so okay, all right, and then 2 months later, another argument goes, and it's like whap. And then the person who has the standards of originally, if you hit me, I'm gone, they rationalize like, wait a second. Well, I know I said if you hit me, I'm gone, but it was only one punch, and he or she won't do this again. See, what we've done is we've rationalized the lowering of our standards, usually to avoid one of two things. It's either the emotional feelings of loneliness and loss that come with the ending of a relationship, or the other one that's very common is to avoid the outward words and judgments of others if we leave, and they only see the positive side of the partner, right? So when you begin to lower your standards, when you begin to look at your partner and go, I'm letting you get away with more than I thought, and usually that's an epiphany moment of like, hey, when we met, I would never tolerate this, that. And now I've tolerated this, that, plus this over here. You're so deep in it, it's time to leave. That links with another of the things I wanted to talk about, and that is turning a blind eye to bad habits. So, usually this comes down to addiction, and I want to break addiction off into two areas. One is love addiction, which, if you've never read Pia Mellody, she has a book called Dealing with Love Addiction. I think that's the title. But wonderful book. It's a workbook, and I've had literally hundreds of clients use it over the years who deal with an issue of love addiction. That is an addiction to the emotional as well as chemical responses that come from romantic love, and how it kind of makes them shut down their common sense because they're on the high of having somebody. And usually what happens is that's an addiction in itself, and if a person has tendencies of being very controlling, manipulative, or maybe they've got some personality disorder stuff going on, or they've got other issues of addiction, physical addiction, like, say, alcoholism or drug use or infidelity or whatever, what happens is the partner who is addicted to love and addicted to a certain feeling, they're living for bumps of the feeling that they get when things are good, right? And so then what happens after that is a person then gets away with a bunch of bad behavior. The person who's engaging in the bad behavior, they lose respect for the boundaries in the relationships because, well, if I'm going to get away with it anyway, what's the point of behaving well? And then that original person who is living for the love bump, they start to realize, hey, those bumps are coming less and less often, and then it leads to problems. It all begins with turning a blind eye to the lowering of standards. Once you turn a blind eye to a bad behavior, it's very hard to relegate the mutual respect that's necessary for a relationship to stay growth minded and growth focused. Another one is if either person is not invested in the relationship. So we all get to that place where a relationship meets a maintenance point for a week or two. Like we've got a lot going on at work, we've got a lot going on with the kids, or whatever the case is. So maintenance relationships do happen. But when it's prolonged, and I say prolonged is anything more than a month, where it's like, yeah, I care about you, okay, email me, call me later, blah, 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 and you're just seeing one or both parties pushing the other to the side and there's no investment, it's time to leave, not because it can't be fixed, but because, again, that resentment of being uninvested in is going to eventually grow, and even if a person changes their behavior short term, the fact that they can disengage and uninvest with you at all is a sign that they've outgrown the relationship at some level. And then the last one, speaking of growth, is if there's no personal growth or emotional growth in the relationship. So personal growth meaning if you don't feel you're walking away day by day, week by week, month by month, and year by year as a better person having your partner in your life, and the relationship itself is growing in directions where you're having new experiences, where you're experiencing variety with each other, where you feel significant to each other, where there's love and connection as a central theme in the relationship, where there's growth and you're both contributing to your society and your community, and you're feeling like you're making a difference together that you wouldn't make by yourself. There's the key. It's time to leave the relationship behind. So those are the 7 things where it's like if you're experiencing one or more of these on a consistent basis, let's call it consistent anything longer than a month, it's time to really do a cost-benefit analysis of whether or not the relationship is worth keeping going. And chances are, I'd say 8 out of 10 times, if you're experiencing one of those signs, it's not worth saving unless, and here's the thing, you have a conversation, and we're talking about maybe even a series of conversations, but you're having conversations where there's acknowledgement from the partner that things need to change, and the changes happen. It's easy to say, I'll get to it, but if a person's truly committed, then change is going to follow words, and if it doesn't, it's time to leave. In any event, are you in a situation where you feel the need to leave a relationship? Please feel free to reach out. I am on Twitter at POPerception. Also, you can leave a message here in the inbox on the YouTube channel and get back to you usually within 24 to 48 hours. We are doing the Social Reconnection sale, $50 a session. Group discounts also available, as well as bulk discounts being available. Until next time, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment.